Hey, what it do, boo? How you doing today? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Carrie. This podcast is all about talking to my ladies, encouraging them in Christ, and we going to have real conversation, okay? And part of our real conversation is talking about the future and risk is part of the plan. So, y'all, now that I'm grown, like big and grown. I'm officially at the age where I have to think logically and purposefully about retirement. And my husband and I, we have a financial planner and we make real grown up decisions about money and future investments. And I remember when I was an intern in college and I had a leader at the time tell me like, "Oh, one of the things I wish I had listened to as a kid was about making investments." And he broke down like what the stock is about and having a percentage of your paycheck go there. And I'm thinking, a percentage of my paycheck? Sir, I'm over here trying to pay my car note and have enough money to go party with my friends on the weekend. Like it was really that simple, and put gas in my car. Like that was it. I was thinking, you want me to use part of this money towards investment? Like what? The idea just completely baffled me. Now at this grown age, I understand that. So when we met with our financial planners, it was kind of like, okay, what do we need to do? Now, of course, there have been investments made over the years, but I was like, no, we need to get serious about this. And now my financial planner sends out this retirement resource. It's like a magazine that we receive each month. And in this month issue, there was an article titled Risk is Part of the Plan. Now, one thing I have learned about myself is I am not a true risk taker. It does not give me the thrill that it gives others. Like even in the article we were reading about this guy, and he just lives for the thrill. He likes the change. He likes the everything that comes with like not knowing what's going to happen. Me, not so much. I don't understand gambling. And really investments feels like it's just a legal way of gambling. But like gambling is not my thing. I'm like, so I'm supposed to give you money and we toss around some numbers and maybe I get it back. Like, or I put a bet on something that's just not how my mind works. I like to hold on to my funds and know what they will yield. I either like to see them or see them pile up somewhere. Like I really have to work on how I look at risk. I've had to go to Vegas several times for work. And when I go, I might enjoy a good show or a restaurant, but you won't find me at nobody's table, slot machines, nothing, because I want to guarantee that my yield, my investment will yield a certain thing. And gambling doesn't give you that. Now, this aversion to risk does show up in other areas of my life, okay? And I would say it especially showed up in my love life. If you've listened to season 1 of my podcast, I really talked about how I had a prolonged season of singleness. And I also discussed singleness in my book, Granny Panty Chronicles, where I talk about all the risks that I took. And let me tell you, a lot of them did not yield any results. And one consistent thing in my dating experience was that I really never got to 3 dates, over 3 dates with a guy. Like, if I even got to 3 dates, it was like, oh my gosh, like I can actually think it was maybe two or three that went past 3 dates, maybe. And I'm talking y'all over a 12-year span, 11, 12-year span. That, and one of them, I might be generous with that, well, by saying three. It just didn't happen. So, needless to say, when I started dating my husband, I knew there was something different about him, but the risk factor felt so high that I almost missed out. And I was just, to be honest, I was just very comfortable in my single woman bubble. Yes, I wanted marriage, but I only wanted it if it looked like I thought it should look. Some of y'all like, ooh, I know what that's like. And I don't know if I got this picture of what I wanted my marriage to be from, just my own imagination, TV, media. I'm not quite sure because I had a great example of what marriage looks like from my parents, but it was by no means perfect. I had an idea of what it looked like. I didn't know what it felt like and what it felt like to live it. And in that process, I was only willing to date if I knew this would lead to marriage. And I know that sounds silly because you're thinking, well, Carrie, you don't know. And in order to lead to marriage, you got to actually date. But I feel like I didn't want to take the risk of someone abusing or misusing my heart. I didn't want to be disappointed and I didn't want to be cheated on. I just did not want to experience any form of heartbreak. And I had been there. I had been there. I had experienced all that before, and I had the battle wounds to show for it. Like, I never, ever wanted to experience that again. So, therefore, I was like, no. If you even did something, you breathed wrong. I was like, oh, ick. No, no, thank you. If your conversation over text, you spelling your and your wrong. I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I was finding all kind of reasons to shut it down because to be honest, I just wasn't ready to take the risk. But I was wisely counseled when recovering from the sting of disappointment that love is a risk. Dating my now husband, y'all, my husband, it was a risk. And some of y'all are like, this is resonating for you because waiting for a husband, but low key not wanting to make the risk, it is a real thing. And finding fault with every man you date or any man that shows interest, you're like critical or you're picking him apart. Woo! I know I'm in your business because this was my business. I get it. I only know because I lived this. But there were things that I just was scared. And it was rooted in fear. I was scared to take a risk on because I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen with that. So when things were getting serious with my husband, I was low key trying to sabotage some things. Like, let me give you an example. We were in church worshiping early in our walk, and he grabbed my hand during worship. I was like, I ain't ready for that. And I didn't like immediately drop his hand or jerk it back, but I like slowly let it go. Because to be honest, worshiping together and holding hands felt too real. And I wasn't, my mind and my heart weren't ready to take that risk. And I think, it was a risk of actually getting the thing I was praying for. And I know this may not make sense right away. It may sound a little cray, but I just wasn't sure I wanted to risk letting someone in without the guarantee that it would be worth the time or effort. I was risking my freedom because if this worked out, I was going to have to allow somebody else to live with my flaws, the things that only I saw or only those closest to me saw. I was going to have to risk loving someone and actually having to act out the love, not the feeling. And I also was going to have to take a risk in like loving someone else's kids in honestly a way that I had never truly demonstrated that type of love in my adult life. So it wasn't that I was just scared for me and protecting myself. I also wanted to make sure that I wanted to do it right. I wanted to show up well. I wanted to represent the Lord. And I remember once when I was young and dumb, I would say stuff like, "Oh, I just fear the unknown. The only thing I fear is the unknown." And in reading this article from my financial planner, the man who thrived off a risk, his whole life and his career had been shaped around these risks. And the thrill of not knowing what would happen was really what drove him. And I thought about that and I was like, not knowing what happens is really an act of faith. Faith is hoping in what you believe God is saying without any evidence to believe that. Like it takes a lot of faith to be honest, to be a Christian. Like you got to believe and know that you know because this world will throw everything at you. And when you have faith in something, it's like I'm choosing to believe this. I'm choosing to do what God would have me do. And instead of betting on myself or my capabilities, I'm putting my faith in God and trusting him to work all things together for my good and his glory. Like that's faith. And I was thinking about this because I always like to take it to the word, as y'all know. And I was like, who else operated with great faith and took a huge risk that could possibly cost her her life? You know who came up? Esther. I was actually talking with my daddy about it, and he immediately said Esther, and I was like, yes. So in the book of Esther, her people, the Jews, were facing persecution because of an edict that the king was deceived into making by an enemy. And Esther's uncle, Mordecai, he requested that she would go into the king, which was technically her husband, but like it's not like you could just go in there and be like, hey, babe, and plead for mercy on behalf of all of her people, on behalf of all of the Jews. But like I said, you couldn't just go into the king and just be like, hey, boo, so let me tell you what happened. No, 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 no. If the king didn't call for you, you didn't go. Like you didn't just show up because doing so could mean immediate death. So maybe if he woke up on the wrong side of the bed, I don't know. He could have been like, nah, I ain't in the mood to see that person, put them to death. Like it could be that easy. So her popping up with them, hey, look what you're doing, could result in her being killed. But if she didn't do this, if she didn't risk her life to to petition on behalf of her people, she could also still be killed with all the other Jews. I mean, talk about a risk. Folks think they have anxiety today, but imagine the survival of your people resting on your shoulders and your husband being the one who could change it all. So Esther fasted and prayed for 3 days before stepping out in faith. And in the end, she saved the Jews and her accuser died. Like I'm grossly simplifying it. Please go read this word for yourself. But the risk paid off. God took care of it all plus some. And this encouraged me, and I hope it encourages you because I took a risk in falling in love with my husband, someone very different from me. But now I am living in an answered prayer. And I'm also learning a whole lot about myself and how to be a better human and how to be more like Jesus because of the wonderful man that he has paired me with. But this is all a part of it. I think often we think that marriage is strictly just for like our benefit. And it's like it's going to benefit you, but it's also going to stretch you in that. So I say to my sisters who are scared today, girl, first of all, take that man before Jesus and step out on faith. Every risk won't yield the dividends you seek, and you may not see the benefits until later. But trust God to do only what He can do. I mean, He's such a good father. He is not going to have you out here wilding out. So that man that ain't about nothing, or that man that all he is temptation to you, boo, he ain't it. Let me just tell you now, he ain't it. But God has a wonderful plan to shape you and make you more like Him. And your future spouse could be part of that plan. But that's going to require you stepping outside of the house. That's going to require you actually talking with people and saying, like, yep, I'm going to take the risk of opening up to this person, which you could be someone who's naturally closed off, or you could be someone who's naturally not very trusting. Believe me, I'm saying it because I understand that. Or you're like, you know what, I don't want to be vulnerable with that person. What if they don't handle it well? That's part of the risk, but it's also part of the thrill, and it can be part of the amazing reward that God has for your life. And I'm also going to say to my sisters who you're like, you know what, the dating part I'm good on, or I'm already married. But what about the one who is scared to apply for the job or to go for the promotion? Girl, take the risk. The risk is part of the plan. Let God put his super on your natural and watch what he does with it. Like you never know until you take the first step. And what's the worst thing? That they say no. Okay, then you bloom where you're planted. Like we have to push past the fear, seek the Lord and say, Lord, what would you have me to do? And sometimes you don't know what he would have you do until you take the first step. And it's like, oh, that's not what you would have me to do. Sometimes I fear being wrong, or, perfectionism tries to rear its ugly head. And I have to remind myself, well, at least now I know that wasn't the role for me, or at least now I know that was not the path that you want me to take. It's still knowledge, but you have to be willing to take the risk. And then also to my sisters who are, maybe you're scared to try that new creative endeavor or start your own business. Let me say this, you won't know until you try. You can ask God for a divine strategy and take the first step. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm going to attend that seminar where they talk about podcasting, or I'm going to attend that seminar where they talk about how to write your book, and get some things stirring. Because also you taking the first step, the Holy Spirit's like, okay, cool, but she's off and running now. I gave her the plan, but now she's starting to build her confidence in it. But don't wait to like, oh, I'm waiting for everything to be perfect. I'm waiting for everything to be right. There is no perfect. God is the perfect. And that's who you are partnering with to bring this to life. You're going to learn some things and you're going to fail at some things. That's part of the journey. So, sis, take the risk. It may be a slow build. That business may take a while to get up and running, but let him prepare you through the discipline and exercise your faith and build that faith muscle. Listen, taking risk by faith is part of the plan. Okay. So y'all know I love a good journal prompt. So I got a journal prompt for the week. Dun 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 dun. Okay. What risk have you been afraid to take and why? I'm going to say it again. What risk have you been afraid to take and why? After you write that down, like write down your answer and really give it some thought and journal and see where the Lord takes you. But after you write it down, I want you to surrender it to God and say, Lord, this is something I'm giving you my vulnerable fear. I'm giving you the stuff that maybe you haven't even told your significant other, you haven't told your bestie. You may not have even said it out loud before, but now you're putting it on paper like, God, this is what I've been afraid to do and why. And after you surrender it to God, ask him what you should do next. Ooh, child, and get ready. Get ready, get ready. All right, y'all. Until next time, peace.